Hello and welcome everybody to episode 6 of The Barred In. My name is Phil Rice. I will be your host this evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, however you are. I trust you're all well. I'm so grateful for you joining us. I have another wonderful panel of guests, some familiar faces and perhaps a couple of new people as well. And we have a bunch of conversational topics. I warmly invite the audience, those of you watching, to put your questions into the live chat, and we will get to them periodically throughout. I'll also do a quick check on the Discord, although I will say this, my tech is a little bit funky at the moment, so switching between screens, I've only got one screen at the moment, so if I miss something, please forgive me, and we'll do what we can. But hey, let's get cracking. So first of all, I'm going to just do a little bit of a thank you and a shout out to Psyche Alchemica, who's also one of our guests today, for sponsoring the live streaming software upgrade this month. Very grateful. I'm very thankful for this because it means that we can essentially create a cooler audience experience and more quality interactive opportunities because of what this has done. So if you are interested in finding ways of supporting the channel so we can keep ranking up the experience for you guys, have a look in the description below. But thank you to Psyche Alchemica for the sponsorship this month. Now, while I've got this on the screen, I'm going to bring Victoria up and say hello.
Hi,
hello,
everyone.
Sister. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am so great. Thank you once again for joining us. You're always welcome here. What's been happening?
Just busy with life. I haven't been doing too much content lately. I think my last video was on kind of the metaphysics of energetic infrastructure, just kind of stream of consciousness sharing. Trying to keep up with my personal practice, and with life, it's interesting because it gives you a lot of opportunities to apply your magical skills and your magical training. That's one thing I really love about this system, that whatever you have going on in life, you have a lot of tools internally and externally as a magician to apply.
Oh, wow, what a great start, man. I just felt that. Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Like, this is it, like living life as the Magus, living with intent, with purpose, with consistent development, and anything else I've forgotten that to augment what you said. But thank you so much. And your videos are really cool too. I love your thumbnails. You've got one of the nicest thumbnail styles, I reckon. I just wanted to say that. Okay, who else we got here? All right, so now I'm still kind of doing a thing here. So I'm going to just say thank you to where are we? Shout out to violetflamestudios.co.nz. Check out my YouTube, guys. I didn't have time to load up a video, but the Ascension game that's in development right now, you can check out some footage of the game development process, and it's looking pretty cool, I reckon. And maybe I'll share something a bit later. But thank you to Violet Flame Studios for the awesome Barred In logo and the backsplash. Much appreciated. Please go check out the website, violetflamestudios.co.nz. Now, returning, we have Mr. Clint Sabom. Clint, how are you, brother? Welcome back.
Oh, doing good. Always glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, so what's been happening in your world, Clint?
Well, just continuing on with life and day-to-day things and doing my Barden coaching and making videos and podcasts and doing group sessions, and it's just been a really good thing, promoting Barden content. Yeah.
Man, I tell you, it's great. And I have to say, your recent video on pyrokinesis, let's see how that one takes off, because like you said, those kinds of things are what get a lot of people in the door. The idea of objective kind of manifestation of capability, through the process. And but anyway, I'm wording it out. But I really enjoyed that one because I've got friends who practice these things, and my understanding is that these things are possible, but they do require a lot of work. And so you gave a good outline and a personal experience with it too. So please, everyone, go check out Clint's YouTube channel. and check out his new pyrokinesis video. That was really cool, man. Thank you for that.
Yeah. You can just type Clint Sabom into the search bar at YouTube and I should come up. It's also YouTube at The Graveyard Cowboy, and also have the Friends Barden podcast going on all major podcast apps.
Oh, true. I better make sure I put a link to that in the YouTube description. Check that out, guys. I'll put that in there. Thank you so much, Clint. And let's see, who else have I got in the back in the green room here? Let's see. We have a new guest here. We have the very cool, awesome Mr. Dinesh. There we go. Dinesh, sorry, I'm going to take that away so we can see your wonderful face, sir. Hello, Dinesh. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Bard Inn.
Thank you for inviting me.
And tell us, you're a busy man, you know, like you do a lot of travel and training. And when we've been chatting recently, you've been Japan, Philippines, and obviously back home as well in Aussie. So what's happening at the moment, brother?
We just finished up in Japan and we're in the Philippines at the moment. So I'm just traveling around with Sifu Mark Erasmus, training, teaching, and it's full on. So
yeah,
experience.
I also want to say congratulations. I see you've got your course material now up on the Marshall Man.
Yeah, so that was Sifu Mark's idea. It goes, I'll put it up there because it's had some really good feedback. And I talked to Kieran, and he's like, yeah, sweet, let's do it. So, yeah, so it's all gone good.
Oh, that's really awesome to hear. Yeah, Marshall Man has a great reach. Kieran does a lot of marketing and creates high quality stuff. So he's a real credit to the overall community because he brings in, you know, hard martial stuff, internals, and, you know, he also has stuff on there too. And so it's good.
Yeah, he puts a lot of effort in. So he's created a platform where all these different masters can come on board and share their experience and perspective, which is a great thing, you know what I mean? Because as we go into the future, all this mystical stuff is being clarified. So there's a process. There's like it's no longer magical or mysterious or anything like that. If you can outline the process, and all these different masters have a different perspective on how they get there, which makes it easy for students to grasp. When they're all in one platform, it's so he's doing a great job there.
And well put. I think that this is like these things that were previously a lot more separate, they're now sort of aggregating because we're finding those common links between, say, martial arts, spirituality, and development in various ways. And these sorts of these pieces are coming back together a bit, and it's really wonderful because this is well, I'm just happy anyway. I'm grateful for all of you guys, you know, doing the hard yards and creating all this wonderful teaching content. So let's, you know, put you in front of some crowds, right? Now I've got one person here who's waiting in the background, and he hasn't given me an ad square yet. So I'm just going to pull this down, and I'm going to bring in. Oh, he doesn't really need one. He's pretty well known. Mr. Bob Smith, how are you, sir? Oh, where's your audio, brother? You're quiet.
Yep. Welcome back, everybody. Glad to be here. What's going on in your world, Phil?
Oh man, someone had to ask me, didn't they? Okay, so let's see. Well, I've been pretty busy doing stuff for the YouTube channel lately. So we had a really great chat with Michael Lamb yesterday. The YouTube analytics have come back, and the crowd is getting younger, which is awesome because when I started it was in the 50s plus. Now it's now it's getting into the 20s, so we're getting a younger crowd. A lot of the watch time is actually happening on a Saturday, so I might start taking advantage of that morning because we're getting good numbers there. Probably won't switch the Bard in. I think it's a bit tricky, but what else is going on? So far out. I'm also building a course for Perseus at the moment. I'm doing the Reiki Shoden, which is the initiate level sort of teachings for Reiki, highly infused with Mark Rasmus and Barden understandings. And there's a new book that's just been released by an eminent Reiki scholar called Franz Steiner. And he's basically bringing in some of the forgotten elements of Kotodama, which in my understanding is essentially Japanese Kabbalah. And so this could be very interesting. And it also brings in the elements and element training and things like this as well. Awesome. And finding these underlying universal threads. And for me, it just brings a whole new level of value to a system that's been largely diluted to a weekend workshop sort of thing. And there's a cultivation practice. Essentially, you've got an ascension pathway. It's a clairsentience ascension pathway, much like what we talk about, that has a hands-on healing sort of application. The other thing I'm working on is this game, which some of you guys would have seen the graphics and the thing. So we did a late night the other night. The bro has got heaps of content. What you're seeing, everybody, is the work of largely just 2 people. And that doesn't include me. There are 2 highly skilled developers making this game that you are seeing in development on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook, on the Violet Flame Studios, these types of things. And so that's really exciting because these guys just crank out, like, they just do a sprint and output high-end content. And so I'm chatting with them. I'm sort of doing a bit of consulting with designing puzzles, games, platforms, level design, esoteric exposition of symbolism, and using esoteric symbolism and puzzles, and just trying to create a sort of in the first game, I think it's going to be largely exposition of symbolism, and just because you're bringing, there's an attraction for an esoteric crowd, but there's also this humongous gaming community that just like playing really good games, and these guys can deliver a real high quality interactive experience. So we're finding ways to bring these things together, and it's a bit of a hoot. So thank you, Bob. That's an update from Phil. What about yourself, sir? What's been happening?
Been busy. Been talking to Mark Stavish a lot lately, and that's been pretty well received. More ritual magic space that, as you guys know, I normally don't have a whole lot to do with. Finally getting around to filming the Zodiac series, so that's good. On my private practice group, we're finishing up the upward trajectory of the Sephiroth in July. And so that's been really interesting. And we're going to start the Path of Manifestation work in August. So hopefully I can get all the coursework up for the Zodiac and Sephiroth business by the end of July for you lovely people out there who might be interested in such things. And then kind of going on from there. There will be a short video course on how to prepare spagyrics, just because people keep asking me for it. And another course on the Ermine Mountain Sudden Enlightenment School with all of its lovely breath retention work, bone setting, and esoteric massage. So busy times, but good stuff all around.
Wow. Yeah, I loved it. You dropped I was probably a few weeks back, you're putting it out to the audience and saying, hey, what do you guys want me to talk about? You're a well-traveled man. You've got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, a lot of background there. And I have to say, I did put a vote in for Shingon Buddhism. I've got a natural pull towards that. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's all the time I've spent the Reiki egregore. But I'm really looking forward to, seeing what else you bring to the table, brother, because you're an excellent articulator. And so I'm very grateful and look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you for your hard work. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, just another quick shout out to the chat and all the wonderful people who are joining us today. Thank you so much. Please enter your questions into the chat and we will get to them throughout the course of the program. Now, let's start off here with this one here. What I wanted to say is, I did put it in the chat, did anyone bring any artifacts or curiosities that they would like to show to the audience? I'm just looking at someone in the middle of the screen who's got long hair, sort of like a denim shirt.
I didn't prepare anything, but I'm looking around my office and I have a lot of different random things.
I was even talking about the game that Andre made.
Oh yeah, so I can show that. I was showing this film earlier. So Andre Conscientia is another bard and magician, and let me actually turn off my background so you guys can see this a little bit better. So this is the box that a game by Andre Conscientia came in. Don't mind my microphone here. And it's a game about gnomes. So to start with, you have a bunch of little characters that go on the game board. So first we have a little gnome that is riding a frog. And also comes with a little jade and a stone. So the game comes with a nice workbook. And there's also a Spirit and PME that deals with games and creating games. I don't know if Andre actually worked with the Spirit to play this game, but this is a game based on gnomes. And it comes with a beautiful, let me pull it out of its packaging, little notebook that you write on as part of the game. And then it comes with these cards. And then I'll show you the game board itself. These different cards with different symbols on them. So for example, this one says, notice the reflective qualities of the gem, how it represents the place where fantasy stoops in mystery and change starts to occur in life. Notice how it contains the strength that reveals the universe. And then the last piece is on the back of this. You have a little fella. And this is the game board itself. So when you read a little bit of feedback. When you kind of read the game book here, it'll give you directions and understanding of the different symbols as you move the gnome on the frog and you make your way through this. And there's also a meditative kind of process. So it's a way to play a game, but also have some kind of esoteric understanding. And, you know, as magicians, we still have hobbies, but, you know, being able to play a game, but still have some kind of metaphysical, magical aspect to it as well is pretty neat.
What's the name of the game?
Let me see if it's on one of these. I might have to send you the link later. I know I've shared it.
Is it on the top of the game board? I saw a title there.
The top of the game board itself. Oh, yes. Gem of Silence, The Secret of the Gnomes.
Gem of Silence?
Yeah.
The Secret of the Gnomes. There we go, everybody. And we'll definitely get a link for that so that the audience can go and have a nosy. And, you know, I think I really see a future in esoteric gaming and bringing recreation to sort of education. Generally, I've just found it as a guitar teacher, I got much better success when I made things interesting. But I think, you know, accessorizing our lives as practices, you know, with these things can be of great benefit, especially when new people are keen to get on board, because everyone's, you know, pop culture pretty much, the society is pretty much submerged in it. But thank you so much for that. It was a lot of fun. Now, did anyone else bring a curiosity they'd like to bring forward to show and tell here in this short moment? Oh, Bob's got something. How's it? Oh, Clint.
So, as many people know, you know, I've been doing this mandala from the cover of Franz Barden's third book. And as we started working through the process, I became curious about anybody else who might have done this. Turns out there is somebody, and he did it from a ritual magic perspective. His name's David Griffin. Apparently, he's quite controversial in ritual magic circles. But basically, the material that was released by the Golden Dawn was essentially only the outer order work. So this book, the Ritual Magic Manual, is the only written source of the inner work. And the inner work also includes work on the Zodiac and the Sephiroth. Once I knew this and got a hold of the book and started reading it, it's out of print very conveniently. It turns out several other people have published works over the years addressing this approach of elements or letters, planets, Zodiac, Sephiroth. But none of them really survived. And none of them addressed them from an internal power perspective. So pretty curious stuff, but if you can snag a copy or a PDF somewhere, the Ritual Magic Manual by David Griffin is a very interesting and curious read. So check it out.
Thanks. That's a very large looking tome you have there.
Yeah, it's about what is this? About 600 pages. But
it's a long PDF.
as a ritual guy, he has to include all the, all the illustrations and the drawings and all the other associated stuff that you have to do. But an interesting approach.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Clint, did you have something to add?
Well, I got something spur of the moment. Yep, and I'll hold it up here. This is a statue of Shiva, which most of you are probably all familiar with. And it's, I like to call him Lord of the Eternal Dance, although he's been called Lord of Creation and Destruction, many different aspects of Shiva energy that can be located. But the story here is I got this statue from a homeless man in Amsterdam when I was 20 years old, years ago. And I've still kept on to it. I didn't lose it, and so it's always been with me in a kind of magical sort of sense. It kind of jump-started my spiritual journey early on.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. Yeah. I one of the great joys I have is discovering the value after just spending so much time inside, and then getting that sort of awareness of that inner world sort of tighter and more vivid. Now I'm seeing things in the external, seeing value in things in the external world that I didn't previously have an appreciation for. And this house I live in, there's so many antiques and ancestral collectives and things like that. Like, I mean, I'm finding out, great granddad was a druid, his brother was a mason, great grandma's mother was a herbalist, and there's all of these collected artifacts throughout the house. I found a book from the 20s on Freemasonry that's like an exceptional book. We've got this old library, all these things that they've done. It's really cool. But new eyes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, well, I've got a question here, and let's just get straight into it. And for me, this is, I think, when you read Initiation into Hermetics, just for as an example, there's a certain way of looking at the world, or there's a variety of ways of looking at the world that can be highly advantageous to and conducive to expedience of outcomes, or just making the process, you don't have to try so hard to want to practice, or you get caught. It's actually like it just becomes part of your day, and obviously integrating practices into daily life, these types of things. But I really just wanted to put this one out there. I mean, this could be seeing life as a quest. I saw a wonderful post from Martin Folks where he says he sees things in life as he makes them quests. And I really like that. That adds a bit more substance to living, I think. But I want to give this one to Dinesh, our new guy, and say, Dinesh, what kind of mental approaches and attitudes can assist with success in Hermetics that you've discovered, sir?
I think the first thing that pops to my mind is mental flexibility. Being flexible in terms of your belief systems, your values, that's one aspect. But the primary thing that especially beginners should focus on is concentration. Being able to stay one-pointed. That's a prerequisite to get any sort of skill in any of these sort of stuff. So the mind itself is a super important aspect that needs a lot of diligent training, especially at the beginning, because there's a high tendency for beginners to kind of wander off and they lose concentration. So finding different ways on how you can concentrate. So what you were talking about, like gamifying things, which makes it fun. So when you make something fun, you can concentrate quite easily because you're locked on, because you're enjoying it. But when you're finding it difficult, that's when it's harder to concentrate. So whatever you enjoy doing is the first approach I would recommend for people because it's easier to stay locked on. So that's one aspect. But the main thing I see where people struggle is preconceived ideas, or like preconceived concepts, and they're trying to experience that concept. So you kind of have to approach this from a no perspective or a no view. Then you get closer to the truth in a sense, right? So the first thing is, when it comes to mental flexibility, that's a qualitative aspect. The quantitative aspect is, can you feel your mind, right? Can you feel the edges of your mind? So that's the quantitative aspect. How far can you feel it in the field, and all of these sort of things. So when you train these two things side by side, then people are on their way. So that's the first thing that pops in my mind. But obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. The other thing is, if you look at the elements, you can put the elemental attributes or characteristics into the mental training as well. So you got the fire method, which is like staying concentrated, serious, willful attitude, and that will suit certain personality types. And then you got the water method, who are more kind of inquisitive. They're curious. They want to explore. So they're a bit more flexible in their mind. They want to experience things. So that might be a different approach for that type of personality. The earth type people, they just want to be in stillness. They want to experience like the profound stillness of reality. So they like to sit still. They don't like to hear things. They just want everything to be quiet. So that's the air method is one of my favorites, is looking for insights. So when you have all of these balanced out, you get a really good overall on how to train your mind and what you lean towards as well. So that's one thing I'll say. So mental flexibility, super important. So keep your mind open, as they say it. Keep it kind of a clean slate where you don't have expectation, you don't have preconceived ideas, and also analyze what you enjoy doing. So if it's more qigong based, if it's more magical based, whatever it may be, you got to approach it that way, especially at the beginning.
Great response. Thank you so much. I knew it was going to be great having you on, brother. Thank you so much. The packaging of like an organization of approach based on a sort of an esoteric framework of how you framed it in the elements there. It's very useful. People can find their natural proclivities amongst that very basic 4-category system. And this is useful in the beginning because if we look at initiation into Hermetics, it's meant to be something that just about anyone can use. And but there is still a lot of variety of personality types and learning styles that can be identified to the person that they can take advantage of to help them with their practice. So thank you. That's a beautiful response. Clint Sabom, what kind of mental approaches and attitudes can assist with success in Hermetics?
Well, I would say I'm going to keep my what I'm going to say is pretty simple. A couple of things come to mind. Number one, don't stress about it so much. Don't stress about it so much and enjoy the process. I see a lot of posts on different Barden groups online, and it seems like people are stressing and worrying about, am I doing this right? And have I met the requirements? And most of the time they have, and they just don't know it, is my take on it. But I would say just don't stress about any of this. Enjoy the process. I'd also say one way to look at it, which has been helpful for me, is to look at it as a healing journey, to heal yourself, not necessarily, I know power attracts many to this path, and having the magical abilities is very enticing, but it is also a healing path. And, there's always healing to do. And there's always refinement to do, even if you're enlightened. But so viewing it as a healing path and enjoying the ride, just don't stress about it, so much.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Enjoy your way back to God. So, there's there's a relaxation and an ease that I've found sitting through these exercises, make them a very pleasant, just sort of like activity to occupy myself with. And there's a development process that happens during that enjoyment. And, you know, I think you're right. And, yes, of course. You're right. The perfectionism thing. And that's, I should have put that in there. I'll bring that up maybe in a bit, but there's a video recently dropped that's on a large subscriber channel that talks about IIH, which is really cool. Regardless of how we might feel about the way it was presented, it's still all good for just exposition. But anyway, moving along here, Victoria, what kind of mental approaches and attitudes can assist with success in Hermetics in your view?
I loved what Clint said, and I should probably adopt that a little bit more. Mine is kind of more sometimes a resilience or a tenacity factor. Sometimes like having to be a warrior through life factor. This morning I thought about a quote by the Buddha that says, "To him that does not accept defeat, the final victory comes." But to what Clint said, it's also about kind of claiming your innate heritage. We are all made in the image of the macrocosm, the creator, and kind of about the return, kind of as Clint and Phil mentioned, that Hermetics is a non-dogmatic way where you can return to your higher self, your higher nature, and reclaim those things, but while in the flesh. You know, you are able to become an avatar, you know, through Barden's system. You know, that is a beautiful possibility for mankind. And regardless of, you know, if it's in one lifetime you achieve it or another lifetime, one approach I personally have is, well, I'm in this lifetime, and realizing it's like bookends, you know, it begins and it ends. So during this time, what am I cultivating for my higher self and my existence beyond that I can take into the beyond? And, you know, whether it's towards another incarnation, just realizing that what you're doing here, it is adding value, you know, whether it's immediate returns or later returns, but also not focusing on the returns, but doing it for the fact that this is part of a bigger journey and you're wanting to be an active participant in the journey. So with the kind of mental approach, one approach I have is that perspective of this is something that I'm doing, you know, short term for the immediate experience, but also long term, you know, post-incarnation. These experiences are adding to that. And my mental attitude, as I mentioned earlier, is sometimes like you just got to have grit. You got to apply yourself. You know, it's completely okay to just be a normal person and not practice magic. And sometimes I'm even tempted, should I just do that instead? But it's like, no, this is my calling. This is what I enjoy. And it's a gift to start to do that work of inner cultivation and really just testing yourself. How far can I go in this life? What can I achieve? I'm in this beautiful blueprint of the creator. Like, how much can I explore God and my love for God by being in this blueprint of his?
Oh, wow. Love that. Awesome. And we're not afraid to use the word God. I've certainly gotten over my Jesus and God allergy to these words. The more I expose myself to, like, man, you know, it's so wonderful and freeing, you know, to do these practices. I'll just leave that there. But thank you. That was a wonderful response. Right now, who have I not put in? Mr. Bob Smith. I'm sure that you have something to put in on this, sir.
Really, two things, one of which piggybacks on what Victoria is getting at. All the practices in IIH, and for that matter, all actual meditative practices, are ultimately very mechanical. You know, they might be leveraging phenomena that we can't measure particularly well, but ultimately they're very mechanical. When you get confused about how to do something, always fall back to the mechanics.
Yeah.
That's going to save you a lot of time. if you break your brain on philosophy, guys, it's just going to eat up years of your life and it's not going to take you anywhere. But if you can isolate the mechanics and get good at them, everything else falls into place. The other thing is, because many of our IIH brethren out there come to this from a very kind of mental approach of things, body training. If you don't have a profoundly physical background from martial arts, military service, professional grade dance training, something like this, you have to get that in you, or you're not going to have the pipes to transmit energy with. And that's going to make everything else much harder to do. So pay attention to the mechanics, got to get those right. Pay attention to the body training if you haven't gotten that beaten into you through the long, slow process that most of us do over a period of years. And if you take care of those two things, sooner or later you're cooking with gas and everything's going to work. But don't worry about the philosophy too much. And if you don't have a profoundly physical background, go get one. That would be my advice.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I concur. And I've said this in a previous one, is that getting back into body training and lifting heavy things, as the brother says, man, that pays off well. And when I heard Clint talking about the squats thing, it's like, I'm hearing this more and more. And, Dinesh is, he's looking like a chiseled Adonis covered over there. He's doing very physical things on his YouTube channel. I think it's great that there's some physicality represented in this community, more so nowadays too. Because it's a health thing as well. It's good to put out an image of sort of healthiness in that too. And so it keeps me on my toes, just like my students used to keep me on my toes as a guitar teacher as well, I might add. Wonderful. Sorry. Yep.
I just want to say one last thing, because I've said this before, but it's a great example. Everybody has this picture in their mind of, the Buddha as this kind of, middle-aged older gentleman with a big round belly. But, he was raised warrior class. They beat that kid like a monkey with a stick when he was growing up. He got all that kind of physical training when he was younger, and that's what made all of his work ultimately possible. So get at it, guys.
Great. Love it. Thank you. Cool. All right. So coming up next, insights and tips. So what I've got here is that I've chosen 3 letters, a letter from the alphabet, and then attached a word from the book and things that we all do. So hopefully there'll be something here for everyone. So I'd love it if each one of the panel could just choose one of these things, and I'll just run through. And so I'd like to start with Clint. Clint, have you got any insights and or tips for vital force visualization or training the void? Oh, your mic's off, brother.
There we go. So with vital force, I would say a lot of lower body strength. Squats are very good. As others have said, the physical exercise is very good for vital force. I think sometimes when you physically exercise, you're naturally charged with vital force. As far as the voidness, the void is essential. And I feel like that is its own journey as you go throughout initiation into Hermetics, for example, in the 10 steps. You keep coming back to the void to realize the concept of emptiness and the expansion of emptiness. And you could call it nothingness too. There's Buddhist literature on, the highest heavens and the lowest hell are all empty. Everything is empty, and you're just wallowing in the emptiness. And a lot of that obviously has to do with impermanence too, and that everything changes and that everything passes and nothing is permanent. And so if you can kind of contact that emptiness, that's great. The other thing I like to recommend is, and I've mentioned this in some of my videos, the great here now. I almost see that as a pseudonym for God, the great here now, because everything that happened in the past happened in the here now. You were there and it happened in the now. Everything that happens in the future will happen in the now. It won't be the future or the past. It's all been one single moment in the now. And you've always been situated exactly where you are in the here. So meditating on the great here now can really almost turn an off switch to the mind. And I'm kind of piggybacking on some of the things that Eckhart Tolle says in The Power of Now, which I read first at a silent monastery that was very influential for me. And so resting in the great here now and almost discovering its vastness, the more you kind of integrate the concept of it, I think that can help with void training tremendously.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Victoria, would you have something you'd like to add on any of these topics?
Sure. I was going to do visualization, but I was inspired by what Clint said about the void. And I would like to add to that because the void and Providence are my favorite places to go in meditation. And when I was 18, I memorized the Heart Sutra, which is about realizing that phenomena is all inherently empty. Form is not different than energy. Energy is not different than form. Form is energy. Energy is form. Thus, everything, is of an empty state. And so for like insights and tips, when you do meditative processes to go into the void, it's about training your brain frequencies to tune into a different state of energy. So most people struggle with this at the beginning of IIH and step 1, because you have to get your mind from stop bouncing around and reacting to things to just going into a center point of stillness and turning into that frequency. But that frequency is what's behind everything in physical manifested reality. So even though I've worked through all the 3 books to one degree or another, I'm always returning to void training. And when I don't feel like practicing, the first thing I will do is go into void training, because that puts your consciousness at a state where you are removing yourself from all the noise, the different planes of reality, and you can acknowledge that everything is just on a manifested reality, but your awareness and your state of being is abiding in emptiness. Real quick, I want to add something to visualization. I wrote a blog post about this a while ago, but to develop this, first realize that when you daydream, your mind's eye is already visualizing things. When you are dreaming, your mind's eye is already visualizing things. So you already have that ability, but it's getting your mind to learn how to do these things consciously and at will. So as Barden's, kind of suggests, but a variation is you can say, okay, I'm going to focus on an object and look at it, put it down, and then try to reimagine it with all of its details. And what a lot of people get focused or hung up on is they think, I need to be able to visualize this just as tangibly right here as it is in like high definition. Yes, you can do that. I've had visions that are high definition, but also just holding to the idea of it being right there. Even if you are not seeing it as tangibly as it is, focus on, can I just imagine it there and hold the intention? And one way to load your visualizations externally is to continually put energy into them. This is something I learned in Tai Chi. I had to do standing Zen for 20 minutes and imagine a rose in front of me. And I was taught the way to do this is to just constantly focus on putting energy into that rose so that I could hold it. And that's my quick bit.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, that's some good stuff there. I have to say that, for myself, I've found a great little collection or exercise set where, I single point focus, and then I breathe into that point, and then it starts to gather and form. and that ends up being a like a mouse pointer, which then I can do like spinning what do they call them, like the fireworks, the sparklers around, and that will create a ghosted image, and that will breathe into that, and that will become more formed. I should probably make a video on this actually, but thank you for that. That was wonderful. Now, Dinesh, have you got something you'd like to throw in the ring?
Yeah. So with vital force or life force, body training is super important, but specifically fascia training, because fascia is what's going to give you the perception of life force, with the mental flexibility that what we talked about before, being able to release your mind outward while maintaining a tensile stretch in your body. This will help you to conduct life force, which will be easier for you to perceive life force. So that's step one, where first you have to increase your perception of life force. And the more you go switching off the muscles and switching on the fascia, the more you're going to be able to perceive it. So that's the first aspect of it. And then I approach this, especially with the students, train your clairsentience first. So feel the energy first. Now add the visualization to what you're feeling. Then notice if you're feeling more, right? So does the visualization give you an objective feedback on, or subjective feedback on whether you're doing it right? Because when we visualization is a bit of a double-edged sword. One, it can enhance your practice, or you can be stuck in an imagination world. So you always need to go back and forth with subjective and objective measurement. And this is why I really like partner training. So with partner training, when you're conducting the energy through to someone, it's either affecting them or it's not. You got an objective feedback when you're doing something right, when you're doing something wrong. When you add the visualization component to partner, it's pretty amazing. Like, it's like, oh, I didn't actually transmit anything through feeling gate. I did it through the visual gate, and still it affected them. So that means my visualization is being strengthened, and I have a way to measure that. So that's one aspect on how to train it. And in terms of the void training, in relation to life force, so just the very basic building the ball exercise, you start to perceive life force, and you keep releasing your mind into it, and you keep going deeper and deeper. Eventually you hit the void of life force, or the akasha of life force. So, and the way you get there is through concentration. You concentrate to a point where it bridges to a meditative state, where the three bodies are synchronized, where you can access the akasha of life force itself. So that's probably the quickest. Well, the quickest way is when someone transmits it to you. But apart from that, the quickest way to do it is one-pointedness of life force itself. And I find that as a meditation object is a lot more profound than like what Barden suggests in the book of visualization on like a matchbox or whatever. It's a very hard thing to hold in your mind. And as Veronica said, one way is that's easier to hold that object is breathe life force into it, because now there's a connection that you've made with your meditation object, which makes it easy to visualize and hold it. But because it's such a mundane object, it's like, it's a matchbox or a pen or whatever it may be. It's a very difficult process to hold that. And some people don't have that sort of concentration from a visual perspective. But what I've noticed is when you pay attention to life force itself, then the visualization comes through. And then eventually you hit the void or the akasha of life force itself. And it's easy to pay attention to energy because it's a phenomena that you keep like observing. It's like, holy shit, this stuff is real. It's a lot easier to maintain that connection. And especially that's one aspect. The other aspect is you have to maintain concentration to keep producing the energy. So if you lose concentration, the energy starts dissipating. So it kind of hits a lot of things at the same time. So the very fundamental exercise of building the ball, all the principles are there for you to get the whole vibrational scale. So it's pretty cool that you can train it that way. Because when I first approached Barden system back in 2008, I found it very difficult, like just on how to concentrate, how to observe your thoughts, and just the very basic stuff. And then when he kept going on about all this other stuff, I'm like, well, you're losing me here. Like, but something told me, like, stick with it. And eventually when I met Sifu Mark Rasmus and how he broke it down mechanically, it's like everything just started making sense, and he started getting results straight away. And what got me into the door was building the ball. First, you have to have a tangible experience that life force exists. Then you have this aha moments, like your spirit awakens and everything becomes a lot easier. So what I would recommend for people starting off is go through that building the ball exercise and everything will fall into place, whether it's visualization or accessing Akasha, or increasing vitality as well. And once we get to that point, it's like, okay, now I can perceive it. What next? It's the ability to manipulate and add information to the energy, which is going to create the dramatic changes in people's lives. So perception alone isn't, you're just perceiving what's there. Even if it's Akasha, it's just a perception of it. We need an ability to connect our minds to it and be able to have will over what we're perceiving and be able to do things. And this is where it really starts getting interesting. And again, for this, I would recommend partner exercises because you get a objective measurement on what you're doing. And the more people you do, the more puzzles you solve, the better you get at it. And this starts to accumulate faith in what you're doing. It doesn't get stuck in the imagination world, because the Barden's approach is a top-down method, which is like someone who's like naturally psychic will get it. Someone who's got a vivid sense of imagination, they'll probably get it. But it's a very long road, and most people won't get it. So the other approach is bottom up. So that's where you access through the body itself, feel energy, right? And then you go up the vibrational scale, and then you work top down. Then you come to an understanding all that exists is consciousness, information, and energy, right? Your mind interacting with form and formlessness, so to get to that point, I believe it's a lot easier when you work from bottom up first and then work top down.
Wonderful. Another great explanation there. And you're absolutely right. For me personally, I'm glad that I found Barden via Mark, because he's like saying, build the ball, build the ball. And so you get into that. And I was doing this with other things, but it's very satisfying. And when you have consecutively, like if you build satisfying things in front of you, like things, it builds momentum. You remain engaged, and then the development flourishes, right? And I have to say that this clairsentience training, and I'll be bringing this into my Reiki course, obviously, it's like it's the game changer, really is. And it makes it very easy. You can teach pretty much anyone it. It gives them a shoe in the door straight away. And I think it's got a better chance of gaining traction via that method personally. That's just my opinion. There's a lot of highly visual people out there, but a lot of visualization skills are being outsourced now because people are getting fed information. So wonderful. Thank you for that. And Bob, I'm sure you've got something here. I've got to come up with a new line. Bob, have you got something you'd like to add?
Yeah. +1 on Build the Ball from Dinesh. It is what I call the gateway drug to magic, as a lot of people refer to it. But when it comes to vital force, this, in my experience, is largely the result of metabolic activity. So don't kid yourself, kids. Stop smoking. Get your body mass in check if you're overweight. That's going to help your vital force a lot. And, when you look at an old broken down guy like me, keep in mind, I wasn't always an old broken down guy. That's the reason why I can still get away with doing some of this stuff. But if you want to improve your vital force, always pay attention to the body, because as one of my teachers once said, you can't beat the monkey and you are the monkey. So, keep that in mind. As far as visualization is concerned, the fluids in IIH, you need to make those. Those are really helpful for improving clairvoyance and clairaudience. And another thing I would suggest is the rites of Eucharist, charging food and drink before you practice with a given force will bring that force alive in ways that are hard to describe. Because we're running short on time, I'll keep it short. Void training. For that, my favorite approach to that is the letters, establishing equilibrium. Because when you really get that to crack, the first couple times it happens, it's explosive. And that forces people to come to terms with the fact that it's not their active visualization and imagination at work anymore. Something really profound is happening here. Because when you're working with a lot of this work, in the beginning, you can say, well, it's my imagination. Oh, it's just sensation. I'm just teaching my body to feel something. Okay, they can mentally abstract their way out of what they're doing and fall back on a materialist pattern of behavior or thinking. When you really hit the void hard the first time, that all falls apart. And again, equilibrium via the letters is the best thing going I've found for that. So,
wonderful
stuff.
Thank you for that. Now, Clint, I do understand that you need to disappear shortly. Thank you. So what I want to do is I want to give you the stage so you can talk about where are we? This one here. I want you to, if you could please, just give us a rundown on what's happening in the world of Clint Sabom as far as your service offerings and wares go, so the crowd can take advantage of that. If you'd like to talk about that.
Sure. And the things I kind of carelessly put out of this promotional sheet are my two ways of kind of attracting clients and, people that listen to me. And those are my YouTube page, which is just Clint Sabom in the search bar, or / The Graveyard Cowboy. And I have lots of videos. I usually do one a week, released on Friday. I've gone through all 10 steps on those videos. I've gone through most of all, even the middle and higher abilities. I've covered just so much ground that has all to do with initiation into Hermetics. And I've also done a lot on the podcast. And the podcast, very obviously named, is the Franz Barton Podcast. And so you can listen in audio if that serves you better. If you want to listen in the car or something like that, you can listen to the Franz Barton Podcast. And I've got some good interviews. I got a good interview on YouTube with Bob here. Well, that was absolutely fantastic. And so I've got those two channels. And as far as my services, I offer individual coaching, one-on-one through Zoom, where I kind of coach you through the 10 steps, answer all your questions, and just kind of provide a safe space to process everything. And one of the things I've found with that is that a lot of times people come into this and they still have, and this is completely okay. They still have some anxiety and depression, maybe some mental health stuff going on that may be part of the appeal of initiation into Hermetics. And I am trained in counseling, so I can also help with that and just, journey through that with clients. So it's really whatever the client wants to work on is open. And as far as the group session, they're transmission sessions of Akashic light, basically. And I basically transmit God, in a sense, the divine providence and the energy of that. And it was something I didn't know I knew how to do, but it was something that I just got when one client asked for it. And I thought, oh, I can't do that. And then I just tried, and he had this very powerful effect. And I thought, okay, maybe I just kind of gathered this skill along the way and didn't really realize I had it. So I started doing group transmission sessions about, every other week. So that is one thing. And then I've got a bunch of online courses on PerseusArcaneAcademy.com. You can check out my courses there, and I'll keep it short because I know other people have to share. But thank you so much for having me on, Phil.
Oh, man, it's always a pleasure, Clint. Thank you for joining us, sir. You have yourself a beautiful rest of your weekend. Thank you for your very kind time, generosity, and wisdom shared. And we'll hopefully probably see you again another time soon.
Absolutely. Would love to come here anytime it works for both of us. So thank you again.
Most welcome. Stay well, brother.
All right.
Okay, now Bob, you've also got to run, sir. Would you like to give us a quick what have you?
Sure. As per usual, you can always find me at 60skills.com or the videos that I put up on YouTube. Always got some good stuff going on there. Perseus will probably have some announcements about upcoming coursework here shortly. And there's always the weekend transmissions, care of Eventbrite. This week we're doing the letter R, which is a backdoor to the Sun Sphere, always very entertaining. And we're doing Equilibrium in the morning session. So if you want to join us, Saturday morning at 11 a.m. New York City time for the Equilibrium session and 1 p.m. New York City time for the letter R. Otherwise, as per usual, train hard and be well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bob. You have a beautiful weekend, brother. And thank you so much for your time, wisdom, and generous contributions. Stay well. Okay. Well, thank you everyone in the chat for sticking around, and I hope you've been enjoying the content and the feedback and the great teachings that we've got here. I feel very, very humbled to bring this range of expertise to the bench here. And I just want to say, if you have a question, please put it into the chat. There are a couple of questions, and I think we're going to start the session off, the next hour off with a couple of audience questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in two more guests who have just arrived. And first of all, I would like to bring Mr. Philip Harris Smith. How are you, good sir?
I'm very well. I appeared quite suddenly, but fortunately I was composed. How are you all? Good?
Good, thank you. So what's been happening? You've got some things on the cook at the moment.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can share with us?
Certainly. I'm going to be running the Enochian Aethers course. That's coming along nicely. And Perseus has put up the entry criteria, which is very strongly recommended that people memorize what's called the call of the 30 Aethers. It's the same call for all of the Aethers. And the reason that people need to memorize that is because I and others who've explored these Aethers in the past, well, not me because I memorized the call straight off, but people who hadn't and just read it from a book eventually found they couldn't enter an Aether. So what they had to do was memorize the call so that when they're on the inner level, about to enter the Aether, they could say it without reading it from a book because they had memorized it. So they sort of mentally say the call. And then this would facilitate. In other words, the angels were filtering for people who had memorized the call of the 30 Aethers. So therefore, we strongly recommend, I strongly recommend that people memorize the call of the 30 Aethers to save themselves time in the long run. Apart from that, at the moment, I'm writing an awful lot about a particular kind of alchemy called the vegetable menstruum, which I've made about 3 or 4 times over the years. And it extracts the sulfur from a metal. And I've talked about that before. I could talk about it at great length as to why it's free. It has to be free. And that's based on a dream, almost a nightmare, if you like, that I had a few years ago. And it made it very clear to me that this has to be a free thing. Shall I spend a few minutes explaining that, or do you want to move on to
no, you can put a couple of minutes into that, brother. Perfect.
All right then. Well, basically in this dream, I was with a bunch of alchemists, and some of these alchemists were receiving money from grateful students. This dream became quite nightmarish. And what happened was what the vegetable menstruum does once you've made it is it extracts, as I say, a sulfur from a mineral, and you get this colored liquid, and behind the material that you started with, that you extracted this from, it's still the same stuff, but it's gone kind of desiccated into a calx. It starts off lovely and crystalline and whatever. You add the menstruum and it draws the virtue out of it. and then it goes into this kind of powdery calx. This kind of, the alchemical life has been extracted from it by your menstruum, and that's the idea of what you're doing. And what in this dream, what was happening is these alchemists were receiving money, and it was acting like a menstruum on them, and they were being turned into calx. The alchemical life was being sucked out of them. And it was actually quite horrifying to watch. And then the students said, how much, they said to me roughly, I can't remember the exact words, was they basically said, how much should we pay you for your alchemical instruction? And I said, nothing, it is free, it's free. So since then, that particular side of things has led me to the view that at least some types of alchemical teaching that I would give must be free, so that I'm not extracted and turned into calx. Now that could be a completely irrational or an anxiety-based dream. It could be, there could be lots of alternative explanations. It may not be what I thought it was. Dreams can be like that, but I took it as a very strong message, and I don't wish to be extracted from. And actually, in my personal opinion, when I see some people online, not all of them, maybe some of them have a alchemical knowledge that I lack, so that they can avoid this problem. But there are, in my opinion, it's just my personal opinion, some people online that charge money for alchemical instruction. And it looks to me like they've been extracted over the years. It looks like the money they've received has acted as a menstruum and drawn the alchemical life from them. But that's just a personal opinion. And I'm not going to say who I think that those people are, because that serves no purpose. This is all my personal opinion, and based on my personal opinion, I'm going to offer a free course on making the vegetable menstruum, alongside the charged for course for people to enter the Enochian Aethers and get some guidance from me as to whether or not they've achieved the Aether and whether or not they're ready for the next one, because some of these Aethers can get a bit hairy if you go in unprepared, as I mentioned. So that's what I'm up to. I'm doing a lot of writing, a lot of preparation, and getting everything up and ready, flow diagrams, brief outlines, stuff like that.
Wonderful, thank you. And that would actually probably make a great topic for a future panel, would be this thing that we come across in the community of mutual exchange of value, paying it forward or creating goods for exchange and these types of things, because there is this is mentioned in the Barden Canon and also in other places as well. But thank you for that. Now I'd like to bring in our Mr. James Robson from Perseus Arcane Academy. Hello, James. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, hello there. Am I in? Oh,
you're in. You're on, man. All eyes are on you, bro. Everyone, you're on stage, man.
Oh my goodness. I'm well. It's bright and early here. So yeah, I'm good. Busy. I've been reading all of what Phil's just been talking about. I've been reading all of his emails and amazing stuff. Bottomless pit of information.
Thank you.
Yeah, and preparing lots more interviews that are coming up soon. It's really, really wonderful, actually. So many people are willing to share, decades of work with us through these interviews. So we've got some really nice ones coming. And yeah, we're going for 100 interviews this year, and we're on track so far. And yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. And we've also got the Marshall side coming up soon as well, which I'll release a few bits of information on soon. And as Bob said, we've got more coming from Bob pretty soon as well.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic. Yeah. And I think, that idea of aiming, like going for 100 interviews, that's a commendable sort of target. And I think too that as more people sort of like get introduced to this body of great works, very accessible works, very tangible and satisfying works, and the multitude of excellent explainers and articulators for the modern, in a relatable parlance or vernacular, I think that's what separates it, because there's a lot of material available to people out there, but a lot of it goes nowhere in a lot of cases. And I think what you're doing is, and especially because you've gone, obviously wider than say Barden, but these, I'm really excited by what Peter Dushman's up to as well with his Kickstarter.
Yes.
So, making physical analogs and pieces, and I'll probably be reaching out to him at some point because I'd like to give him some support there. But it's a wonderful space.
Wonderful. Yeah, he's amazing. We went wide as well because, like, as amazing as everyone is in the Barden community, it's like, why cut ourselves off from so many other great people? And there's so many crossovers as well. So many people that are involved in other magical traditions have also got Franz Barden's books on the shelves as well, and which they're dipping into every now and then. So yeah, there's so many people out there with so much to offer. So yeah, we hope to get in contact with more and more of those people who have spent, as I say, decades doing this quietly, and see what we can find out and start connecting the dots between all the different approaches.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I'm in consideration. I never really intended this channel to be a wait for it. I haven't dropped this yet. I never really intended this channel to be an only friends, but I'll just let that one sit for a bit. All right, okay.
Yeah, you got me there, man.
Oh, that's good. Got a bit of levity there. It cracks the eyes. But so I really love what you're up to, James, and I know that you and Tanya are just such stalwart contributors and working hard to building such valuable infrastructure for the community. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, right. So we've got a couple of questions from the audience. Most welcome, brother, and thank you so much for coming on too. It's always a pleasure. Now, I've got some questions in the chat here and picking them. Here's a really good one. And I'll start with Philip for this one. Basically, the question is, I have friends who are coming to town and staying at my house. How do I maintain my practice without regress when I will be catering to my guests? How does one maintain a minimum practice and discreetly? So basically, it's a common thing. Life happens. You've got your thing. You've got visitors coming in. You're trying to manage your life. Barden talks about this as well. It's like, well, you'll be practicing in bed if you can't access the room, sort of thing. So, Philip, would you like to comment, please?
Yeah, exactly. When you were saying about bed, I remember someone, I forget who it was now, talking about basically someone Barden apparently knew was a soldier or something, and he used to do his Barden work in bed next to his wife, and his wife never knew that he was even doing anything like that. And probably he had like a secret hermetic life that even is maybe she suspected he was up to no good, but she could maybe her intuition told her he was doing something, but what's he doing? I don't know, but probably if she found out as Barden, she might have been quite relieved actually. But now that's with Barden stuff, it's relatively easy. I think he even talks about a broom cupboard or something. Put yourself in a cupboard somewhere. I'm just going into the broom cupboard. I'll be back later. Yeah. But with ritual magic, which I do, that's is a bit tougher. The only thing you can do really if you've got visitors is I've just got to go to the groceries for something, guys, and then if you've got a nice little secluded, if there's a nice little secluded spot, not currently occupied by the local craft, you can maybe use that, or maybe. Just off the top of my head, if something like that were to emerge, I'd see if I could get in touch with people in the craft locally, and ask if I could visit a particular spot that they knew was good, and do my stuff there. I'm sure they'd be very facilitative if that need ever arose. With Barden stuff, because there's not a lot of ritual involved, or at least there doesn't need to be, it's pretty straightforward to just sit quietly on a chair somewhere. But if you're you're gonna have to, if people are coming that aren't into all that, you've got to have to put all your regalia and your robes and all your your equipment away. And if worse comes to worse, stash it in the boot of the car, and head off on a pretext for an hour or two and then come back later with whatever grocery items you said you needed to get. You know, that's the only thing I can suggest. The other alternative, just tell them what you're doing, and as it were, be damned, and you know, give them a video to watch and go up and get on with it and come back later. That's the other option, I suppose. Nothing else springs to mind, I'm afraid.
Yeah, great. You're absolutely right. You know, being able to make your practice portable if you need to displace yourself, whether it's time or space, location. Yeah, that's probably my 2 cents. Is like, you know, if you need any implements to carry with you, a timer or a string of beads and that, they just go for a walk. If you're lucky enough to have a good park down the road, that, you know, I think being able to train in challenging and adverse conditions. I learned to meditate while there was construction going on all around me, and people might think that's unhelpful, but to be fair, it's so obvious the contrast. I was easily able to pull myself out of it. It was quite an interesting sort of starting point. But Victoria, have you got something you can add on this?
The first thing I also thought about is doing it in your bed, whether while you're laying down or just kind of sit with your pillow propped up behind you at the head of your bed. Do your, you know, meditation in your asana. My meditation chamber is basically a walk-in closet with a curtain over it. So, you know, if you have a space where you can go disappear into another room. Like Philip mentioned, you can just say you're doing a practice, but you don't have to say it's magic. You can just say, I have a meditation practice, you know, helps me with my day-to-day life. I'm just going to go sit for 20 minutes and I'll be back. When I was doing internal martial arts, I was taught that you can be training 24/7. So we're used to going into our asanas, but you can do training anything, you know, while you're sitting, visiting with people. You can be loading the rooms or pour breathing or transfer of consciousness. It kind of depends on being in that mindset of how can I find everything I do throughout the day for your magical development. Truth, I don't do that, but when I remember, I try to. But you always have an opportunity at every moment to be doing some kind of practice as well. Or even when you're going to the loo, you know, you could take an extra 10 minutes, but just be sitting on the toilet seat down and, you know, like, okay, I'm going to do my little meditation here.
Love it. Yeah, great. You know, I think that's it. Ultimately, when you get to the point where you're able to stretch out, you know, your practice throughout your day, and it just becomes part of your everyday life. Like, you know, I naturally find myself just floating when I go for a walk now. You know, it just kind of automatically kicks in because that's what I want. You know, I set these things up, but it's a challenge. Right now, who have I got next here? James. Tell me, can you offer anything if somebody comes to visit?
It depends, I suppose, who they are, how long they're staying. You know, if it's a day, then, you know, sometimes needs must and life happens, you know. But generally, I would, you know, if they're coming for a day, and then I'd probably go, okay, I'll just do a bigger session this evening once they've gone. If they're staying for a few days, then I'll just we'll probably say I'll. You know, if depending on my relationship, I might say, you know, I'm just going to do my breathing practice. That's what I used to say when I used to stay with relatives or whatever. I'm just going to do my breathing. It's general enough to be accepted and strange enough that they don't ask any more questions. So that's one thing that I might say. But also as well, I mean, you know. You get up in the morning. Before you get up, you know, stay in bed for another 10 minutes. Wake up 15 minutes early. Do some void meditation. Do your practice of that day. If I've got company, then I'm probably going to do something for stillness, and I'm also going to energize myself for the day so that I'm a bit more dynamic and energized and social. And so I can kind of charge myself up with what I'm going to spend during the day. And as others have said, you know, taking moments, like when I used to work in an office, you know, I'd take every moment I could when I remembered, but, you know, to sort of take just a few minutes of void or some time to go outside and do some vital force breathing or some element breathing, or even using and practicing some of my mudras that I've been charging up to see if I was going to get an effect in the office. It happens in my bedroom, but can it have an effect here in the office with all these other people around? So it was all good experiments. So I guess it really depends on the social occasion. But I suppose the main thing is, if they're your guests, you want to be present to who they are and what they're saying, and to your interactions. So today, practice might have to come second.
Yeah, that's just might have to be the way it is. It doesn't mean we don't practice. It may just, I think too that, if there's an event happening in the day that kind of appears to be obstructing the practice, it's like, well, hang on, how do I reframe this for myself? So it's actually, hang on, there's an opportunity here where I have to become a little flexible, and I can actually use my practice to sort of, or use this opportunity to sort of help my practice somehow. Like, it's like training under load. It's not the ideal situation. It offers me some heavier weights to lift, as far as, this practice will get done, but I'm going to have to be a little more agile in how I execute it. So,
exactly.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that, sir. Now, Dinesh, tell me, have you ever found yourself in this situation? Have you got any advice you could give?
Well, the first thing that popped in my mind was set your standards. Like, you don't compromise your values of who you are, and if your practice is of high value, then that's your first priority. And if you set that standard, people will understand. And with the energy of, like, when I better myself, it's betterment for everyone else around me, my friends, my family, my loved ones, right? So or if you are in a position where I have to be, and the guests are coming, this is an opportunity for practice, because we need to distinguish the difference between practice and application. Application yields a lot more fruit than practice does, because you get a full result on what you're doing. So, for example, as Veronica was saying, this is a good opportunity for you to test your skills. Load the space up with whatever frequency, and test if that frequency is affecting these individuals. You could load it with air element, with insightful topics of discussion, or it could be like happy conversation of some sort, whatever it may be. See if you can guide the direction of how people are interacting, or if there's some sort of conflict arising, can you diffuse it? Can you release that? So this is a practical way to apply what you practice, because when we practice on it by ourselves, that's easy, right? But the application is what's difficult. And when we provide more and more evidence to what we're doing, and we're doing it well, it gives us an ability to refine what we're doing. Because if there's no measurement on what you're doing, then you're going to just keep doing what you're doing, right? But if you have an objective measurement, I'm like, I loaded this space up with laughter. People started giggling and laughing. I'm like, cool, it's working. And whatever it may be, like if the conversation is very dull and boring, see if you can change that. Because if you're an alchemist, if you're a magician, you should be able to do that, because one of the base skills is mental transference, and I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing your practice to people, because from my perspective, because as a teacher, I want more and more people to engage on this, and diffuse or release any resistance for people engaging this, because yes, you can go full in depth into the magical training, and that might not be for everyone, but everyone can benefit from the vital astral mental level. How to synchronize these three aspects is a fundamental thing that everyone should have, because this is the biggest problem that people don't have. They don't know how to synchronize their bodies and align it to their objectives. And that's a simple topic that we can talk about, and doesn't have to be mystical or magical or separate from what you do. And you can make that whole experience of when your guests come over not just a insightful moment, but a hospitable, and they get something out of it. There's some value returned both ways. So I think, look for the opportunities where you can practically apply this, and and it doesn't matter if you fail, you get some sort of result. Then you know how to do things better next time. So that would be the approach I would take. But first and foremost, you set standards on who you are. You don't compromise on your highest values and priorities.
That's really cool, man. You're absolutely right. And, people enjoy us for who we are. And in a lot of cases, for the large part, we are the result of what we engage in. And so, man, you can have the best of me, but I need this little pocket of time in the day to ensure the ongoingness of this. And communicating that to others, I think that's a skill in itself, because some people are going to have preconceptions about whatever it is that you do. And so you choose how you frame it when you're communicating this to people. And I think, like James said, I'm just going out to do some breathing, or I'm, whatever, or, I'm a Hermetic Qigong practitioner, or I'm a Reiki practitioner. It's just part of my bag, just how I roll, you can, that's pretty much it. So yeah, thank you, brother. That was very, very good. And yes, never compromise on your principles. Be very clear about those. I think that'd make another great conversation for a future panel. Okay. Now I put this one in here because there's a few more audience questions, and I'm just going to skip one of the conversations because I really wanted to get to this. And we're going to start with James, and I want to talk about dietary agility, or changes that have been made throughout the process, because as the body becomes more sensitive through the training, you may find that things that you used to do or eat or drink, whatever, they're not cool anymore. They're not helping. And, for myself, I have explored different diets. I'm largely vegan. But as I get more into the Kabbalah training and the wanting to generate more vital force, I'm finding that I'm having to eat more, and that's actually becoming inconvenient. And so I'm sort of dancing around the idea of getting back into some animal protein and things like that, just to see if it jacks it up. So, James, I'd love to hear if you've got anything to add on this question of have any diet changes helped with your Hermetic journey?
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay. Well, I'd say for me personally, I wouldn't say maybe it's the Hermetic journey. It's more probably a life journey. In that I've got older, my diet's become better. I'm in Asia, so I'm privileged to have a lot of healthy food on my doorstep. I went back to the UK last year, and I was shocked at what was supposed to be food. It was just dead manufactured substance, so luckily here, we can go out and we can buy some fruit, we can have a smoothie, we can have freshly cooked food in front of us. So picking vegan or picking vegetarian or picking a particular type of diet, I think possibly works in the West, because you have things pre-done for you, pre-made in that vein, in vegetarian, vegan, whatever. Whereas here, I'm happy that it's just alive and healthy. So I'm happy to eat meat, I'm happy to eat dairy, I'm happy to eat whatever, because I know it's been freshly produced in front of me and it's full of vitality. So that's the main thing that's changed in my life, is that when I first came to Asia, I still had my very, very much English habits of eating rubbish, being a chocolate monster. But as the years have gone by, and as my training has continued, like you said, with some of the physical trainings, with some of the soft tissue training, you do need more. You do need more protein. You're either going to eat more, or you're going to have to increase the energy, the protein that you're getting out of that food. So I do eat meat. I don't eat beef or pork. I only really eat chicken. I don't eat seafood, although I'm on an island with lots of lovely seafood. That's a run over from my time in the Vajrayana, where seafood is seen as kind of like, the cockroaches of the ocean. And it doesn't really agree with me. So really my diet's just cleaned up. Whether that's because of my Barden journey, or whether that's because that's a life journey of maturing and making better choices, I don't know.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. Being able to pivot and flex, be flexible with food choices. And you made extremely valid point there. You know, where you are geographically located, if you put care into, you know, food choices, you know, your position on the globe is going to be affected by what's available essentially. And, you know, whatever it is you're doing, if you like eating chocolate, you know, you just upgrade your chocolate choices. You know, you get instead of the $5 bar, you get the $10 bar sort of thing. And I think that this improvement and just upping your game and upgrading the input of this is data. Food is essentially a form of data, right? And so, you know, I mean, that's myself as well. It's like, you know, I'd love to eat organic all the time. It's not always within my reach personally. And the little shop up the road and my family's mall doesn't always have quite the full spread. But the good thing is that there's lots of people around here that grow food, and we have a farmer's market and these types of things. So there's always opportunities. And I think that, you know, when you become, you know, as I've become more sensitive, I'll say it for myself, I become very aware of how food choices affect my ability to focus and keep my game tight when I'm getting in the zone. For me, I found things like anything sugary, even some sugary fruits, are just really unhelpful. But thank you for that, James. Some great knowledge there. Mr. Philip Harris-Smith, have you got something you can add on this?
Well, I think the idea of quality, you know, like I think people have kind of said this. The Italians have a wonderful approach to food. If their budget doesn't allow them to get the best food, they'll eat basic stuff all week and have a really nice piece of meat at the weekend. For example, you know, a proper, decent outdoor bread, preferably organic, packed with flavor, that kind of thing. And I think that's certainly the best approach. For myself, I've pretty much completely gone off alcohol over the years, and I did used to enjoy it, but I just don't like it anymore. And the only time I ever get tempted now with alcohol is I used to have a nice vintage port at Christmas, and that's the only time I get a hankering for it. But I find alcohol actually. I've developed apart from port, which I wrestle with, and that only once a year, I found I've actually become quite antithetical towards it. And I sort of find myself, I'm in the supermarket, I find myself glaring at the wine aisle. You know, what am I glaring at the wine for? How ridiculous, you know. You know what? I feel angry about it in some way, because I feel it would harm myself, and it's harming other people, which is ridiculous. And it's also not for me to decide what people do. It's their choice. You know, I don't want to restrict their choice. So yeah, you know, eating good quality food, preferably organic. If you can't afford it, then save up to have it rarely, and just have such much more basic stuff, even plant protein and stuff, the rest of the week. You know, as I say, as the Italians do, even that I take a leaf out of their book when it comes to food, really. And just make sure you've got a balanced diet, fresh veggies, that kind of thing. As Barden pretty much says this, you know, fresh vegetables, good quality food. Don't shy off meats. You can be vegetarian sometimes if you want, for magical reasons, and that will leave the body well stocked with fluids, I think he says, and I'd agree with that. I'd agree that that's true, but I think James is right about the junk food. It's in abundance here in the UK. You do have to, you know, there's like one small area in the supermarket for the organic spring onions, or the, you know, I sort of like literally skip towards the chicken aisle if they've got an organic chicken. It costs about twice as much, but I'm prepared to miss out for the rest of the week so that I can have that organic chicken. You know, I'm prepared to just stick to with noodles and tofu or whatever. You know? Not every day, but you know, I'm prepared to economize on other meals just so I can have, instead of the battery hen next to it. And they the other thing is they fly off the shelves in the UK as well. I don't know why they don't offer them more. There's, like I say, when I go to the supermarket, if I see an organic chicken or organic beef joint or whatever, I'll grab it, because even if I'm not sure the budget can quite meet it that week, because I know it won't be there when I go back. Someone else will have got it. And I just stash it in the freezer, and you know. stuff like that. Yeah. So Barter's advice on diet, I definitely go with, and I have completely gone off alcohol. It's it's like smokers become. I've never really smoked. I did smoked shisha in the Arabian Peninsula for a while, but I didn't really take to it. But yeah, you know how smokers become fanatical anti-smokers once they find the habit. There's this wild look in their eyes. Do you smoke? You know, it's kind of me with alcohol. I try to sort of keep a lid on it and try to not get too fanatical. It's not like I drank a lot. It's just I used to enjoy it occasionally, and but I see it as something that held me back. You know, that's maybe why I see it as something I wasted time over. But anyway, I'm perhaps getting a little too discursive. Please move on to someone else, Phil.
No, thank you, brother. And you're right. And thank you for bringing up the topic of alcohol. And, you know, back in my day as a performing musician, you know, that whole industry, man, I tell you what, I drank my share, your share, and everyone else's share in a short pack at a time. And I've had to do a lot of healing and recovery. Most of the regrets that I have in my life arose from when I was under the influence of alcohol, personally. And, you know, there's a lot of relationships that I would have liked to maintain that maybe aren't around today because of my relationship with that. But it certainly was a good learning tool. But nowadays, I just have no interest in it. And that's fine. People can if they wish, but it's not a good timer. When you're on stage and you're watching a group of people degenerate to sort of like watch them have questionably moral judgment type decisions over a long period of time, I just found it just put me off. But as far as training goes, I don't find any usefulness for training, and it doesn't make me feel good, and it feels, I don't know, I'm too sensitive nowadays. But thank you for bringing that up. Now, Victoria, have any diet changes helped with your Hermetic journey?
I've had a lot of different diets throughout my life. I've been vegetarian for several years. I've been pescatarian for several years. Currently, I eat meat, but I don't eat pork for over 8 years.
Sorry, what's pescatarian?
So you'll eat seafood, but not land animals. So it's basically vegetarian with seafood. When I was 19, I lived with a Gurdjieff community, and it was all raw food. And it was very difficult to stick with, but I had to because that's all that they provided there. But that was incredibly transformative because my taste buds and my sense of smell felt like I was experiencing them for the first time in my life, because all of the processed foods and the extra ingredients weren't dulling things down. That was pretty neat. And I want to do that again at some point in this life. But I'll be frank, I enjoy carbs. I can eat a large pizza by myself. I like beer on occasion, but I also find, especially as I work more with higher vibrational frequencies, that the more I eat nutritious, well-rounded food that's nourishing, the more I am in an ideal vital state. You know, too much heavy foods. If I have, you know, a beer the next night, I'll probably feel it in my body. And when you do energy work, you realize, and this is something I've been really observing the past year, the more I eat really nutritious food, the better my vessel is every day on a vitality level. And that also has a feedback into your astral body and your mental body for your training. So I would say focus on, you know, healthy, well-balanced food, but I'll also be a bad example here. I enjoy pizza and pasta and a beer on occasion, and I'm able to continue my practice, but I actually realize my practice does a lot better when I'm eating healthier.
Yeah, wonderful. And yeah, I must say, you know, I enjoy something fizzy, something, you know, carbonated. And I don't like soft drinks, and don't like beer, but I've managed to find a kombucha that I like, and that's sort of holding me over. But yeah, you know, finding things that work. You know, when I switched to vegetarian, vegan sort of thing, I found that you know, I had to replace some of my favorite things. And I think personally, I found food to be a really good journey because I was lazy as just a blokey meat eater back in the day. big piece of meat and some veggies, yeah, whatever. Now it's like I go to the veggie store. I've got a big range of new toys to play with. I don't know. I think I really enjoy the eating process and giving myself restrictions to see how that food affects me too. Like Mark Rasmus talks about the mono meal and just eating the same thing and getting really used to that, and just getting really familiar with ingredients. Simply, I broke my meal right down to nothing, and then I built it from there. As a Reiki teacher, there's certain things you don't want to eat. If you're in a small room with someone, you don't want to have bodily gas, basically. And so you make food choices that are complementary to your practice. I'm just being very blunt here because I basically modeled my meal around things that were friendly to my internal ecosystem. Now, Mr. Dinesh Kumar, you do a bit of travel, and I have no doubt that you've got something to add on the food conversation here. So if you would, please.
Yeah, well, while traveling, it's very difficult to stick to any sort of diet. Like right now, I'm living off charcoal chicken. That's all they have here in Philippines. But in terms of diet, what I would recommend is you got to look at, if you're a practitioner, you got to look at what diet is optimal for my practice. And so I've played around with this. So the diet that I always go back to is a carnivore diet, and predominantly just beef. And this worked really well for me, and I stuck to it for a year because it worked so well. And I tried a vegetarian diet. So this is the difference that I found, but it's a very subjective thing. Everyone's quite different, and you have to kind of trial and error a few things and see what works for you. But this is what's worked for me. So when I did vegetarian, what I noticed was there was an increase in vitality. There was I had a lot of energy, but I was not recovering from my workouts and the physical training that I was doing as well. But I had a lot of energy, which is kind of, I didn't quite understand it then. And then when I was doing the carnivore diet, I was working out more and recovering much faster. So that was very interesting. But the other thing that I noticed with the carnivore diet is the mental clarity and the mental stillness that I noticed. So for myself, the most conducive diet is the carnivore diet. It seemed to be best for meditation and physical training, and there's a stillness quality that you can easily get through the carnivore diet, because I think when your body's in ketosis, you lose any sort of craving for other foods. Like you don't crave sugar or carbs anymore, so there's no static in your field. Whereas when I was doing vegetarian, when I was still incorporating carbs and sugars and stuff, there was too much static in my field. So to get into akasha and stuff, it was a bit more difficult because you need that quiet to get into the depth of akasha. So for myself, I find the carnivore diet seems to be the best, and my body heals a lot quicker, and my mental clarity and sharpness is a lot easier. And I don't have to deal with cravings. Like with the carnivore, it's a nuisance. When you have cravings of this and that, like you have a couple of steaks and then you're good to go for hours. You don't think about food at all. And there's this feeling of I'm satiated, but I'm not full. When you eat like food that like carb heavy, you just like, I just want to go sleep or something. You don't get that at all with the carnivore diet. But again, this is a very subjective thing. Like I don't think they've nailed the science on diet is very, it's not. They need to do a lot more because it's way too subjective. Because when other people who've tried carnivore, it's had a complete opposite effect on them. So I don't know. So it's just, this one is a very subjective thing, and you have to trial and error a few things and see what works for you. But what I would recommend is what is conducive to my practice. So if you have that as a goal, so for mental clarity and stillness and open mental space, you got to figure out what works for you. Right? To increase vitality, you got to figure out what works for you, and to actually feel happy as well. And what you're eating is super important. So if you have that as a map, and then you try different diets, and then you journal out these things, then you'll figure out what's the best diet for you. And I think changing it up every now and then is also pretty good. It changes the microbiome in your system, because if you're just doing one thing the whole time, that might be detrimental as well. But it's an experimental game. You have to play around with it, try to do a few different things.
Yeah, wonderful, man. Everyone just drops. Oh, yep.
Sorry, one more thing I would like to add in terms of diet. and practice, what I've noticed is alcohol and drugs is definitely not conducive to practice. Like if you look at like the nature of these things, the whole game is to concentrate, right? If someone consumes alcohol and then you tell them to concentrate, it's not going to happen, and it's even worse with drugs. Yes, they might have like a spiritual experience or some sort of trip, but they have no control over it. So this is like one thing, like with the students that I teach, I'm kind of the only thing that I'm kind of rigid on, because I know they're not going to get results, because my objective as a teacher is to get results for people. And there are a lot of things that you can compromise on, but those two things you can't compromise on, because especially at the beginning, it's going to make you unable to concentrate. And concentration is the game here. You know what I mean? The deeper you're able to concentrate, the deeper you're able to own these different frequencies and do something with it. So that's something. Like, have you ever had because I was a bouncer for about 5 years, so I was surrounded by drunk people, and I've never noticed any intelligence coming out of drunk people. It's as simple as that. It's even worse on drugs. It's like they should be in a psych ward or something. So there's objective, like you look at it like, okay, that's definitely not conducive to practice. But you look at someone who's a practicer, they're one-pointed, their body's still, their astral emotions are still, their mind is still. You can't get that with consuming alcohol and drugs. It's just, there's sometimes people debate on it, but there is no debate. It's straightforward. You look at people who are drunk, they have idiotic conversations. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and these are important considerations. Oh, sorry, Victoria.
I want to add something. Alcohol is also known to kill brain cells, so it does kind of make you less smart. But I wanted to share real quick some other topics from a different tradition I learned, which was a esoteric samurai lineage I was initiated into. And in Japan, a lot of time you have to go to functions where the people are having sake. So one thing even hermeticists can do is, if you load alcohol with adrenaline, the energy of adrenaline, you can continue to drink and not get drunk. So if anyone wants to ever test this out themselves, you can act drunk, especially if you're of a warrior class, but you need to always be ready and prepared, but still fit into social situations. Another thing is, I was taught, because I was in a system that had to deal with a lot of direct interaction with the darker forces of the world, kind of on a warfare level, getting exposure to malevolence. One of the things that you could do to counter that is to eat red meat. There was something about red meat that they don't have a positive reaction towards. So whenever I'm around too many dark energies kind of in my area, I'll have a burger, I'll have a steak, I'll get beef something, and that always kind of helps to negate the forces. And I think Philip has something to say on that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that ties in perfectly. I don't want you to stop, but just very quickly. When people suffer from being fairy charmed, steak as raw as possible is the solution. Please continue.
That's all I had to say. But that's neat. I've never heard that about fairy charm. That's cool.
Yeah, I've heard that iron and the presence of maybe a ferrous metal acts as a kind of a repellent for some, and perhaps that ties in because obviously red meat contains iron, and it's one of the most compact forms of iron to eat. Now we're coming up towards the end of the second hour, and I am more than happy to continue. But if anyone needs to disappear, we can do a half-hour overtime if anyone wants to stick around. Otherwise, we can start stitching things up. So just let me know in the private chat if anyone needs to eject, and I'll cue that up. But in the meantime, I've got a fun question from the audience here, and we're going to give this one to let's give this one to Dinesh. Okay, where are we? So the question is, as soon as I find it, not that one, here it is here. Now, this is great. I love this. This is about the rig. This is about the gig bag. So I am curious what would be in everyone's to-go case for their practice. So you basically have an assortment of implements or instruments or tools that or aids for your practice. And I've seen videos with Dinesh using kettlebells and weights and these things. Now, it may not be easy to put a couple of 5-10 kilo kettlebells in the backpack and go for a wander down to the beach. But Dinesh, have you what's in your to-go bag? You know, if you've got to eject from the house and you want to go practice, what do you make sure you can put in your pocket or your bag?
For me, like it's my body and mind. So there's a lot you can do with just your body and mind, and if you train it that way, and then everything else is an auxiliary thing. Like you can. Is this in relation to? So I'm trying to understand the question. Is it practice for overall practice, or is it a specific type of practice?
Well, I mean, they haven't been specific with the question, but
okay. So let's break it down then. So say physical training, obviously, lifting weights and stuff is very good, but you're doing a specific way that's conducive to practice, where you're developing fascia more than muscle. But if you don't have the equipment, you can always do body weight stuff, right? And going for a huge hike, that also helps as well. So that's the physical aspect. So the mental aspect is where's the most conducive place to practice. I like nature. I like sacred places. But in terms of to-go case, I don't really understand exactly what that means, but I'm thinking like amulets. Is that what they're referring to?
I think they're talking about like a bag, like basically if you go out and practice, this is my bag of particulars that incorporates all of the things that I require to go and do my practices.
Right. Okay. So because I'm traveling, I've got a bunch of resistant bands, and I've got one of those metal whackers to whack myself to wake me up in the morning. So those are the things that I use. But the main thing I would say is train the mind and body where you don't have to depend on anything, and everything else that you bring on top of that is a bonus, because sometimes you're in a position where you don't have anything. Like for example, the question that was asked before, when if I've got a bunch of people coming over, I need to host them. I can't have like my wand and all these sort of things with me. I have to train my mind where no one knows what I'm doing, but I'm still practicing. I don't know if that answered the question at all, but
No, that's okay, because I mean, essentially, our practices are quite unique to ourselves. And there was a wonderful comment here from Michael Costello, and he nailed it pretty well. He says, when I travel, I bring a body brush, my mala beads, and my journal. And I mean, I would add to that, like I have a timer. I don't usually use a phone. I took Bob's advice and got a baking timer and did an exploration about useful baking timers and these types of things. Thank you for that. James, would you like to comment on this question?
Yeah, sure. On the bag of tools question.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the right question up now.
I'm with Dinesh on this one. I really don't like tools. I don't like paraphernalia. I don't like all the material, like the spiritual products, if you like. I never have. I have mala, but again, I count on my fingers. I do sets. I count on one hand and I do sets on the other hand, in terms of counting repetitions. So I don't have a time measurement tool. I just don't like having things that I need to use. It's just my mind, my body. As Dinesh said as well, in terms of the physical training, tendon training, connective tissue training, I don't need anything for that. I don't need any weights for that. I can put my body in certain positions. I can activate pushing and pulling, and I can work those forces. I really have not a dislike, but I just don't like having to. I always thought, like when I was young, you see these magical movies, and the hero's useless unless he's got his wand. Well, I thought, I never want to rely on the wand. I want to be able to just zap them without the wand. Why do I need to do that? You know, like Homelander, you just want to zap him with your eyes. You don't want to have to wait until you've got your wand. So yeah, I don't have a bag, and I don't want to have a bag.
No, perfect. And you know, it reminds me there's a great gag in the musical circles about there was some DJ playing to 30,000 people, and he forgot his USB stick, and they had to cancel the gig. You know, because if you gave him an instrument, he might be able to play a couple of tunes, but people are expecting a thing. But yeah, it's like, but that's the thing is like, you know, I mean, we talked about this in one of the other panels as well. Is like, you know, if you got dropped off on an island and all you had was the book. I mean, you know, you'll find ways. I think being creative with it. I dance around things, but I'm the same. I don't like having to rely on external things because, you know. But I must say that having a set time for concentration practices and stuff has helped me a lot. But there's ways of monitoring time. You can put a stick in the ground and watch the sun move around a bit, whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page as you, Mr. Philip Harris Smith.
Well, when I first started out, I used to have loads of stuff, you know. I used to have swords and cups and pentacles. I used to love all that. Used to, you know, but these days, it's kind of optional, really. But the one thing that I'm very, very fond of.
Oh, let's have a look at this.
Is I mean, I got it in Egypt. It was up on the top in the shop, so it's the kind of thing that tourists are given. But they didn't really want to sell this one to me, except for in dollars, and I insisted that I should pay for it at a more reasonable price. You do have to haggle a lot in Egypt, but that's basically it's kind of biblical, you know, the idea that Moses struck the rock and the water flowed, you know, and all that. So it's part of a for me, it's part of a heritage that I'm giving my respect to. It's not an essential item, but I'm very fond of it, and it to me it establishes a linkage and respect to people who have gone before. In, you know, for example, I used to do an awful lot what's sometimes called the Greco-Egyptian manuscript. It's been reworked several times. It starts off the I invoke the Bornless One, if that rings a bell for people. And of course that comes from that region as well. So there's a heritage that I so I suppose it wouldn't actually need to be my staff as such. It could be anything as long as it had a linkage to the magical heritage. Because as I'm on the move, you know, as I've travelled in various parts of the world, it was nice to have something that was more recognition of my heritage rather than an essential piece of magical paraphernalia. As James has pointed out, you know, the Barden practitioner doesn't need paraphernalia, but it is nice. You know, it's nice. And if you've got a really nice thing that you're really pleased with, then you should definitely take it with you. I mean, if one time me and my wife, we used to really like these confectionaries that are more common in the Middle East now, where they've got a lot of pistachio and kind of yogurt in them, and especially this green stuff. There was a shop on City Road in Cardiff, and this here, I had it with me for some reason. I think we just come back from the countryside, but it stayed in the shop for about a week until we went back, and I'd forgot. I didn't even think of it. But you know, the Muslim guys there, they just made sure I got it back. You know, they were very worried I'd never return, and then they'd have to have it forever. And you know, but they were so pleased. And then I said, "Oh, so I wondered where that. I'd forgotten all about that. How could I forget? I've used that. I'd used that in so many rituals, but I literally forgot about it." And then about a week later, we ran out of green because Jan loved the green. It's like a sort of yogurty sweet thing with pistachio nuts in, and you find it a lot around the Arabic Peninsula in that sort of Middle Eastern area. And there's, as I say, a shop on City Road. No, it was on Albany Road, sorry. in Cardiff, and we used to drive down there just to get the green for her, and we keep it in the fridge. It wouldn't last very long, but Snakey stayed in the shop window watching people go by for about a week, and then I finally I'd forgotten all about him, and then they gave him back to me. And then I remembered him. I'd forgotten, and then I remembered him. So they have a life of their own as well, which is interesting as well. And that's part of why paraphernalia can be useful. It's not essential, but it's useful. And I would also add that it's fun. It really is. Dressing up and getting all the gear and putting down the circle and having all the stuff. I made a circle once. A local guy, made it 4 slots of plyboard, and I did the Kabbalistic serpent, and I had all the Enochian stuff in the middle, and I used oil paints, and then I used clear varnish over the top. It took me hundreds of hours. I was so happy. Then I lost it. It's gone. It went. I forgot about it as well. So they have a use. There's a place for them. Yeah. I don't know if I can add any more.
No, that's great. Thank you. And, I think some pieces maybe act as companions as well, and yeah, I mean, there's utility in all things essentially, but I guess it's, I have a piece that I wear that's very valuable and useful, but I'm completely fine if I lose it and never see it again as well. Being able to let go of these things, there might be there's some things I've moved on from that there's still a bit of an astral cord or something in there. I kind of think back and it feels a bit rugged, but thank you. Now, Victoria, I would love to hear your take on this about the go-to bag if you're on the road and you got some magic to do or training.
Yeah, similar to Dinesh and James, my first thought was, just having yourself, that's enough to be able to do the practice. But when I do travel, I take my magical journal and my dream journal. That way I can just document as I'm doing my exercises, having different magical experiences. But if I don't have that, that's okay. It's nice for record keeping and to look back to what your experiences were on a certain day or what you did. But I also believe, if you just have yourself, that's enough. But I also appreciate what Philip said, because these external things are reminders and symbols for us. And it does make things fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's well put. Yeah, I think that's really nailed it. Now, I've got a couple of questions have come up in the audience that actually relate to a question that I put into the question or the topic schedule, and it seems to be quite relevant. And this is on the topic of journaling. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the question up here for a moment, and then I'm going to scroll down, and the question, Chris here has put a question up which relates directly to it, which is, do people keep a magical journal? Well, I mean, I presume so. I do. Journaling makes up a very important part of my practice. It's out of everything, and then Bob and I have talked about this too, is that for me personally, it's probably paid some of it's an amplifier. That's what I'll say it is. It's an amplifier. It reinforces and what's going on and the continuity and the potency, and it's sort of like when I sit down to my journal, it's like a ritual in itself. Like it's a moment where I open the book and I have the pen, and I'm pretty bare bones. I get I get a box of these exercise books every year, and I just fill them out because I can just write. And then I've started looking at more ornate and beautification in the form of my journaling too, which makes me put a bit more thought into it rather than just the scribbled sort of scratchings of a mad person, which, you get better at journaling as you move through. But I would love to pass this one to, who have I got for this one? On the topic of journaling. So we just had Victoria. Let's go to James. James, can you please tell us about the value and the changes or the evolution of your own journaling practice? Presumably that you have one.
Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yeah, I do. But Early days, I didn't. I'll be honest. Maybe the first year, maybe or two even. I didn't. I mean, I kept some rough notes, but nothing too detailed. And then I think there's been a few evolutions in that. I saw Stephen Mark Rasmus in 2012, and that was a big sort of Kickstarter in that area, like in the value of doing it and how to do it, and what you're going to get out of it. So that made a lot more sense for me. After seeing him, I was like, all right, I gotta be more disciplined on that. I saw him again a couple of years later, and again that reiterated that. And I was finding things, where you write down dreams or you write down experiences, and then you come back, and these are things you've completely forgotten about. The details you've forgotten about, or the dream itself you completely forgot about, and since then other things have happened that kind of substantiated that dream. So it has a real value there. And also it's good to look back and see how lazy or not I've been. Have my numbers dropped? Has my time dropped? Have I gone into maintenance mode? Am I actually growing, or am I just doing the same thing again and again? So it's good as a review. And then more recent years, I was part of another tradition. I'll keep that private, but where journaling was again much more strictly monitored, and basically, even the tradition here in Asia that I was part of. But let me give that example actually. We were required to kind of build our own manual. So from everything we get and everything we do, you really had to keep good notes, because we would actually have to basically recreate all of this in our own manual, so that we could reproduce the teachings and the experiences in our own words in a way that someone else could follow that path. So definitely it's taught me that if I don't do it, there's probably a tendency for me to get a little bit lackluster with it, and unconsciously repeat the things that I like and not do the things that I need to do. Do you know what I mean? Your practice becomes the things that you kind of like, but not the things that are actually going to help move you forward. So journaling is brilliant for that, because there's no hiding. And it definitely does evolve. And I think it does, the more you do it, the more you get out of it. At first it's discipline, and then later on you're actually seeing some reward coming from that journaling. I'm still not as much as I see other people who are really, really, really into it, really love it. It's a tool for me. It's a tool. It's a necessary tool. And I do get a lot out of it, but I'm not writing hundreds of pages. I'm writing a page entry per day probably, and that's it.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. I found, especially in the early stages after practicing meditation, I got into dream journaling, and man, that can become a tyrannical task. It's like, oh, you like writing down dreams, do you? Well, here's a whole bunch more to write down. And, how much of it do you need to? And it's like, you just, more detail opens up, and even writing dreams down is a really good practice in recall and visualization and these types of things. The fragments start to flower and that. But I found that I have to be conscious of the amount of time that I have in a day. And so now my journaling has, especially after listening to Mark Rasmus talk about it, and the practices make you become more focused. So there's less kind of fluffy story writing types of things. It's become more objective and laser pointed for myself. And therefore it's become far more useful, and I'm getting greater gains out of it as well. So
absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. It's like it becomes, for the fragments, it's very useful, because, like you say, you do start to focus in on memories, and then those memories open up, and then the gaps between the memories start to fill in, and then you start to get a whole host of memories coming. And also, the laser focus, definitely, you start writing more, and then it becomes much more concise, which is where I'm at now.
Yeah, love it. That's great. And just someone in the chat, they're talking about AI versus, using AI and apps versus handwriting. And I just want to say from my own experience that handwriting, there's really no substitute for the potency of you're doing gestures, you know, you're typing on a keyboard, you're pressing buttons. There's still value in that. But there's something when you are putting more effort in. I don't know, like I see those images of Thoth, and he's always got a pen in his hand. And I wonder if some of these figures from history, if they were around today, how they would view technological sorts of implements over more traditional ones. And I've just found there's a much more personal connection with writing by hand. But anyway, so I just wanted to comment on in the chat there. But James, did you have anything you wanted to share on handwriting versus digital?
Yeah, sure. Basically, I mean, of course, I love AI, I love tech, but in this case, I don't really think it brings anything. It's just a novelty, really. Yeah, you can do a voice thing and record it as a voice, and that can transcribe it into writing. Maybe that has some use to save time, but you're still not going to have a journal in front of you that you can just flick through and find things that you did years ago. So yeah, I think personally, I would say stick with the handwriting. It has a lot more uses other than the actual easiness of entering the information. It has a lot of other uses, and it builds up over time, right? It's with you for all of your practices. So yeah, I would stick with the manual writing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Victoria.
So I've done journaling for over 20 years. And even before I did magical journaling, it was very potent because then I could look back and see, different psychic experiences I had. Like I had a journal entry from like 7th grade where I had like a psychic vision. And then I wrote that, oh, yes, this came to pass, So it's pretty neat to look back and reference how, as someone else mentioned, even I think it was James, even dreams, you might have prophetic dreams. I had a dream that 10 years later manifested. And if it wasn't for me writing that dream down and being like, oh my gosh, and showing that, the dream world, you're outside of time. So, regardless of time that passes, you could have a dream and 10 years later, it's about something that will eventually manifest as part of your path. With journaling, I pretty much journal all of my magical exercises, except if I'm doing something like a void meditation or just kind of accumulating the elements for fun. Like, oh, I want to do something, sometimes I don't feel like I need to write that because I've done those exercises so much earlier on and I journaled about it. But I do like magical journals to look back and reference to see, okay, what were my kind of shortcomings here? How the trajectory of, I kept hitting this wall, but I eventually got through to this exercise. Especially for my mental wandering journeys, it's important to journal because then you can have more details of the landscape, the conversations, your experiences, and reference back. I think Bob has mentioned in another video, we tend to have cognitive dissonance. You have magical experiences, then you forget about it. And your brain snaps back into reality, unless you're consciously tuning into a different state. So by writing in your journal, you're able to look back and say, yeah, I did have these experiences. And it brings it fresh to your memory of your development that you have been working on.
I think you're on mute, Phil.
Thank you. Yes. The cognitive dissonance is a real thing. You're overcoming adversarial aspects of yourself or parts of you that are adversarial to progress because you have maybe these imprinted patterns and things. And so, the journaling really allows you to externalize objective data about yourself. You go, yes, that's true. Yes, I drink too much coffee. Yes, I'm not really hitting that threshold as far as my concentration goes. Yes, and you acknowledge these things. This is it's a path of real self-honesty if we're really honest about it. But the journal is I love flicking through my journals. I have stacks of them, and I just grab a random one, flick through it, and then go, Oh yeah, and especially the dream stuff. Going back through dream journals is really fun, man. Like if you do that before you go to bed, that can kickstart stuff too. Because it's like all right, it's time to hang out. We're going into dreamland. Okay, let's get in the zone for that. Right, let's get some mood cranking. You know. So yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Dinesh. Please, I'd love to hear about your journaling journey. Journaling journey. Oh, I should have put that in there. Oh, next time.
So this is a pretty important topic, and it's something that I've put quite a bit of thought into. And so, I mean, what everyone said, like I'll just try and add something different to it because I believe they're all correct. If we look at the reason for journaling, it's a communication between your conscious and subconscious mind. It's an interaction between it that happens when you journal. So if that's the purpose, then you look at what's the most effective way to do that. And journaling seems to be one of them. But another method that I've found for myself personally is if you're fortunate enough, because my wife is a practitioner as well. So as soon as I have an experience or of some sort after a meditation or whatever, I go and talk to her about it. Not so much the experience, but the process. So I'm big on journaling the process because if I can't recreate an experience, it's kind of useless. And at the same time, I don't want to attach to an experience either because that might nullify me from getting new experience. Because if my mind's like, I had this amazing, whatever it may be, visual and all that kind of stuff, and I need to go back there, there's an attachment to it. So it means that you can't go higher or have a different sort of experience. So I'm big on journaling process on how you got there rather than journaling the experience itself. But also journaling experience is quite valid, but I put a lot more emphasis on the process. I think that's also because I put a lot more effort into teaching. So for me, giving people my experience is not valuable, whereas giving people the process on how I got these experiences is a lot more valuable for people because experience is very subjective, but the process and principles are objective. So when I focus a lot more on that in my journaling. But what I noticed was talking to someone that you're comfortable with and going through, okay, this is what I did. And if they went through the same thing, do they have a similar experience? So there's an objective measurement there. And also, what is that experience benefit for? Like, how does it benefit you? Or how does it benefit other people? Because you can have some vivid experiences, but it might not be, what do you say, like useful in any sense, because it's the reality in the different spectrums is quite different to the physical. So what happens up there or in the akasha or something like that might not be relevant in here in the physical. So you just leave it there. So I try to go, this is the process of what I did to get there. So like being very quiet in the mind in the background and taking subtle mental notes on like, okay, just keep this in mind, keep that in mind. So there's a connection that you can make on how you get back there. And I kind of leave the experience where it is, especially working with akasha. If I talk too much about the experience, I feel like I'm corrupting it a little bit and contaminating it, because some things you cannot articulate intellectually. Some things you cannot talk about it. It just doesn't make any sense. So I just emphasize more on the process itself. But I would recommend for people, another thing I would like to add is, like, if we look at the process of journaling and the objective of journaling, it's a communication between your conscious and subconscious mind. So when you're journaling, I've played around with this, when you hold your pen, tune into the feeling of whatever the experience was and journal that, rather than just trying to intellectualize what you were journaling. So when you do it that way, that communication or the channel between the two of conscious and subconscious is strengthened. So whatever you write down comes to be real a lot quicker. Because if you mindlessly writing down, this is what I experienced and blah, 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 You're journaling, but it's mindless. It's like anything else that we do. So mindful journaling is a lot more important than just journaling for the sake of journaling. So the qualitative aspect is a lot more important, especially when it comes to journaling, because some people love journaling, and that's a really good trait to have. But they tend to waste a bit too much time and go into detail. Like I like keep doing dot forms of what did I do mentally, astrally, physically, and maybe a little bit more detail on that, and then just a short description on the experience. So there's some thing on how I can get back there, and I keep it very short like that. But that, even though it's short and concise, the quality of the journaling should be quite high, meaning the three bodies are synchronized into what you're doing in terms of journaling in this case.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes. And I think too that when people get into, if they haven't done some form of journaling or writing adventure before, they get into journaling because it fuels the practice. And then, yeah, you can find yourself starting to get into storytelling and story writing. And it's like that you can harvest that and pull that to one side and then come back to the purpose, because even getting into writing can open certain doors and things. And so in dream journaling, a great practice is to write down the objective experience of what you witnessed before you start commenting on it and adding to it. Now, James, you've got to disappear and take the dog for a walk. Thank you so much for joining us again, sir. It's always a pleasure. And we want to do a quick plug for Perseus Arcane Academy, and we'd like to give you the last words before you head out.
Well, thank you very much, Phil. I don't want to break the flow too much of your next question, but yeah, thank you for having me again. Lovely to be here with everyone. And yeah, as I said, yeah, keep watching Perseus. We've got a lot more interviews coming up, and also some on the martial side as well, which will be really fun. More stuff from Bob coming soon as well. And that's really it. Really, I just would encourage people to have a look through our blog. Keep scrolling. There's a lot there, and also we've got, what have we got now? I think we've got 4 or 5 free courses on Perseus now. We've got the first of our bodywork ones as well. So yeah, anyone who's curious, there's lots of free material there. So come over and have a little look.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you, your time, your wisdom. Say hi to the dog. Say hi to Tanya. Have yourself a beautiful day, weekend, and no doubt we will be in touch and see you again very soon.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya. All right. Oh, man. Oh, now we're all big. Oh, crikey. Okay. This is getting serious. Yeah. Okay. Now, Mr. Philip Harris-Smith, on the topic of, where did it go? I just wanted to get your feedback on the journaling journey.
Well, perhaps because I'm redoing the Aethers at the moment, one of the things that springs to mind is because a lot of experiences like that are not they're above the mental body. I don't want to get too much into taxonomy, but they're no longer intellectual. So it's a struggle to journal them, but you must do so that the experience can be recollected in some way at least. Otherwise, it can entirely fade. You could even forget you did it. So the written journal provides a clumsy expression, which will then remind you of what occurred, and that's an aspect of journaling that becomes increasingly important over time. The fact that you were inadequately describing it, but it triggers the you can't say it's recollection because you're in your intellectual mind, but it triggers a recognition of what went on, and that's also important. I couldn't really say any more than that. But that is really an addition to the really thorough and important comments that have been made.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I think, if we're attempting to, as clunky as it might be, but we're looking to engage deeper into our practice, and then whatever we're doing, and we're performing some kind of devotion, almost like a devotional act, it all pays dividends at some point. And the more care and effort we put into it, it just flowers further. That's been my personal experience, and journaling's been great. Now, Dinesh, you're going to be late for the prom if we don't give you a graceful exit here. So I'm just going to pull up this wonderful square, and I'm going to put this up on the stage here, and I'm going to say, Dinesh, thank you so much for joining us. It was really awesome having you, man. You brought some great conversation, feedback, lessons, teachings, and where can people get more Dinesh?
I've got that. Well, thank you for having me. It's been amazing to interact with other practitioners and having this conversation. I've got a YouTube channel, Instagram. What else have I got there? So I've got an online course, lifeforcemastery.org. And I'm going to be doing a workshop in Europe next year, start of next year in Switzerland. So just email me if you're interested in that.
Wonderful. That's a curious choice, Switzerland. Oh, okay, man. I tell you, nobody's advertising courses there at the moment, as far as I know. So that'll be great. Well, we'll have to catch up prior to that and give that some plugging. Hopefully, we'll get a few more people from Europe on board, and they'll be like, "I've got to go see this guy." And thank you for your awesome videos. You're very generous with your content and your explanations too, sir. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time, wisdoms, and that. And have yourself a beautiful weekend. And we'll no doubt be in touch and talk again very soon.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
And then there were three. All right. Well, it looks like it's us three, and we're gonna just. Oh, hang on. Is Bob in the mix? Are you there, Bob? Is Bob there? Bob might want to join in on this convo. I'll just leave Bob open up here. Hopefully he doesn't come in and he's like having another conversation. But I was going to say, that's funny. Actually, I'll just take him off. But Bob, if you're listening, you can come on. He might be plucking his teeth or something.
Yeah. He might be doing his weights or
yeah.
Anything could be going on there,
We could catch Bob in his spandex and his headband doing some aerobics, who was the guy? Richard Summers. Anyway, so this next question, we want to go into a little bit of magic here, and I want to talk about this. And we want to round out sort of the next 10 minutes here and just talk about something that's a little further on in the book and the initiation into Hermetics. But recently I discovered a piece of obsidian. And it turns out during practice, that obsidian can be quite a useful tool for magic mirrors. And so, Philip, I'd love to start with you if I could. And if you could comment on the value in exploring magic mirrors.
Well, they obviously, Barden talks about accumulators and loading magic mirrors so that they can be set to concentrate. Then you can actually switch them to radiate and then keep them aside, loading quietly on their own. So they're immensely useful. Many years ago, I actually wrote a book which used spagyric, alchemical spagyric liquids as accumulators instead of just basic herbal extractions. And they would become, if you like, the liquid body of a mirror. They are immensely versatile. You can make a mirror specifically. You can even put, for example, what you find in Francis Barrett's The Majors, Magic Squares, into the mirror if you're going to keep it stuck with one planet instead of a general use mirror. Then you can put herbs, metals, etc., relating to that into, say, a plaster of Paris mirror. Then you can varnish it over or paint it over matte black and matte varnish so that it doesn't, you don't lose any of the paint if you drop it by accident. And it's really, really useful in a lot of ways. You can use it. There's a really good book. It's not in print at the moment, How to Make and Use Magic Mirrors by Nigel R. Clough. And there's a lot of Barden stuff in there. And people might find it interesting because basically what this guy does is he explains how to use magic mirrors, but then rightly or wrongly, he places the methodology for it at a much earlier point in Barden's training. But because it is very Barden stuff, that might be of interest to people if they can find the PDF online. I looked the other day and I saw a PDF for it. Unfortunately, it's out of print, so it's ridiculously expensive to buy. It's only a little book. How to Make and Use Magic Mirrors by Nigel R. Clough. That book's been around a long time, and just to discuss that, you can use a mirror to draw you into the astral if you're not conversant with traveling out of body yet. You can lie down in, or assume an asana, have the mirror set up, and you can have it just help you as you move out of your physical body, and then go through it, for example, as well as, and this is more so where Barden discusses its usages. You can load it, and then it can radiate energy. It can be used to protect an area, or it can be used in evocation. You can load a mirror, and then if you put a planetary energy on it, you can put that onto the triangle, and that can make life a lot easier. Obviously, you can also have various angels, for example, in Enochian. If I've got a sheet of obsidian, and when I went to the British Museum a while back, they actually had Dee's obsidian mirror, which he had used to speak with the angels, along with Kelly. They didn't just use a piece of quartz the size of an orange. They also sometimes used this flat piece of obsidian as well. So the magic mirror can be. People try to make a distinction between magic mirrors and crystals, and in terms of manufacture or whether you buy one, that's true. But they can overlap very much so. It's a shame Bob isn't on, because he would be able to talk about this device that we looked at a while ago, and that really helps. That really helps with the work. But I'll let it be. Bob knows more about it, so he can. There they go. They are very useful devices. And then if you put a shoe stone or a mirror on top of that device, it goes very nicely indeed. I could talk for hours, but I'll let other people have a chance. I'll just spend hours talking about mirrors and shoe stones. Please add more. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And I wanted to save that question for you because I know you have some background knowledge on that. And I think, the living crystal device can add a new level of exploration to some familiar types of apparatus and implements in the magician's kit. Now, Victoria, have you got something you can add on the value in exploring magic mirrors?
Sure. I also have an obsidian mirror, and I've done some invocation with it, but honestly, I haven't worked with my mirror that much because I wanted to experiment with the visualization of a spirit in the mirror. And I was able to do that. And when I first started, I was having kind of difficulty getting a visualization in the mirror. And a fellow magician told me to put my clairvoyance fluid condenser that I made on the mirror itself, and that you need some kind of fluid there to kind of help it. So I did that, and that helped. Now, what I'm fascinated in, but I haven't experimented or put the time into it yet, is using the mirror to look into different planes of existence. Not just invocation, but looking in different astral planes, different mental planes. However, it is also just like an external physical object. You can do that, just internally. But I do find myself coming to appreciate more and more using external props, because while Franz Barden is an internal power system and it focuses on that, there's also the beauty of being in Malkuth and having physical objects around us, and those are magical things. So even though as a personal practitioner, I focus on the internal a lot. I'm starting to appreciate more and more. You can use the external world, as within, so without, as without, so within.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah, hey, look, I love toys. I can't help it. I've been a musician. You should have seen the rig that I had when I was earning good money, and I had a beautiful guitar, a beautiful amp, beautiful rig, and that enhanced the experience that I was able to provide for myself and for others. And if I tried to do it with substandard gear, I could probably still get something, but I'd have to squeeze it a little bit harder. I'd have to work a bit harder. And so as I'm aging in years, I'm finding I'm okay with using certain things. There's certainly certain internal aspects that I prefer to just go vanilla with, or I'm a naked practicer in some ways, but I have to say I do enjoy, like, that piece of obsidian that popped up in the practice that I made a short video on it. I've actually got a friend who's had a big change in his life, and he's getting into working with stone, and so he's got it, and I've asked him to polish it flat. And so, but I sit with this thing, and I've sat with crystals, but I've sat with this piece of obsidian, and it's a thunderbolt, man. You notice it, but sitting with it, sorry, I'm wandering off the topic, but I found that it's really important to explore, because it also helps me fund my mental transference training and my clairsentience development too. And so these external things become quite valuable in that sense. But yeah, I mean, magic mirrors are still something I haven't got into yet, but the bros chipping me something up, and so I'll be looking forward to having a play with that. And with that said,
may I add one thing?
Please.
With obsidian and also jet, if memory serves me correct, they will attract from the environment. So it's a very good idea to keep them wrapped in silk when they're not in use. That's the only thing I would add.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And that I've heard that echoed as well from others. So that's a great piece to think about, because you're right, like, you don't necessarily want to leave things on, in the background. It's like, once you're finished with it, the operation's complete, you put it aside and you put it away. So now I just want to say thank you so much for my wonderful panel of guests. I want to say thank you to the wonderful people in the chat and everyone watching who stuck around. We've had a really great attendance today in the live, and we've had some great conversations, some great questions. And as always, it's been such a pleasure. And Mr. Philip Harris-Smith, you people can find you at falconbookspublishing.com under the author section, where there's I think there's some blogs there, and I think you're on Perseus as well with some blogs, aren't you?
Yeah. The courses haven't quite arrived yet still. The Enochian one, it takes generally about 6 months for people to memorize the call.
Oh yeah, wow.
So that unfortunately puts a delay on it for people. It's unfair of them to sort of enroll if they aren't ready to do it yet. And the alchemy one, that's well underway. We should, everything's imminent.
Yeah.
I'm toiling away. It'll all turn up. Probably like buses in the UK. It'll all turn up in one big pile at once suddenly, and people won't know which bus to choose. That's just how it goes sometimes. Everything has its season, and the only thing to do is just keep going.
Yeah.
Until it's time not to. That's all you do. Great.
I love it. It's as simple as that. You keep going until you can't, basically. Pretty much it. And I want to say also a big thank you to you, Philip, for all your wisdom and time that you've shared with us today. I'm very grateful for your time, sir.
It's a pleasure, mate.
Thank you. And now, Victoria, I want to put this awesome. I love showing your card off because it's so lovely, and I can even take that banner off because it's so well made. I don't need to put the banner up. So I want to say thank you again for sponsoring the software upgrade for the stream. That's very helpful. And I know that, we've had to play with some of the toys in the background, and there's still a bit of scope to explore there. But, thank you so much for your time and input and wisdom today. I'm very grateful for that. We're all very busy people, and I want to say thank you for all of the content, as well as your too, Philip. The blogs take time. Sometimes they come out and sometimes we go over them again, and your videos can be the same. your long form video content that you've been dropping lately, Victoria, has been really fun and interesting, and I'm very grateful for it. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close off the stream?
So I would say what 60 Skills usually says, which is work hard and train, or work hard and be well. But I'm going to say the Japanese version, which is Gumbate, which is basically just work hard, train hard. But in the words of Clint, have fun. But remember, we're here on Earth, so this is the time to take action, get things done, sink your teeth into your practice. You have tons of potential people. And you have plenty of people to look at as examples, normal folk just like you who've done the work. And time is going to pass regardless. So just make this your hobby, make this your passion, get into it. There's a huge community. There's a lot of people showing you can do it. Clint Sabom has some incredible YouTube videos. And that's it. And just keep trucking along.
Wonderful. Thank you. And once again, thank you to everyone in the audience and the chat for joining us and supporting us. And if you would like to know ways you can support the guests, find the guests, you can support this channel. There's some options in there too. Have a look in the YouTube description below. And please join us tomorrow. I will have Mr. Bob Smith and Mark Stavish back for another salty chat, no doubt. And we look forward to that. And I just want to do a quick shout out to Foolish Fish. Thank you so much for doing the review on the Barden book, and we'll bring that topic up in a future one. I sort of thought about it and put it in here. It skipped my mind, but we're really grateful for the exposure for this wonderful body of material, regardless of how it came across and all the rest of it. I'm just very grateful. Thank you so much. So with that said, as Bob would say, train hard, be well, and we'll see you in the astral maybe.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.